The Australian housing crisis in 2024 has reached critical levels, driven by a complex blend of skyrocketing immigration, supply shortages, speculative investment, and economic factors. The real estate market, particularly in major cities like Sydney and Melbourne, is facing unprecedented pressure as the demand for housing far outstrips supply. With a population boom exacerbating an already tight market, home ownership and affordable renting are becoming increasingly out of reach for many Australians. One of the most pressing issues is immigration, which in 2024 continues to soar. Net overseas migration is projected to bring in 400,000 new residents annually, a figure that has remained high following the COVID-19 pandemic recovery period. This number is almost double the long-term average, which hovered around 200,000 per year before the pandemic. With the vast majority of these migrants settling in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, the housing market in these cities is under immense strain. These urban hubs are attractive for employment, education, and lifestyle opportunities, but the rapid influx of people has led to a severe housing shortage, with demand far exceeding the number of homes being built. As of 2024, Australia is estimated to have a housing shortfall of more than 160,000 homes. The Australian Bureau of Statistics reports that while construction activity has ramped up, it remains insufficient to meet the growing demand. In 2023 to 2024, housing commencements were still lagging, largely due to high construction costs, material shortages, and labor constraints. The price of building materials, such as steel and timber, has surged by 20 to 30%, making it more expensive to build new homes. These factors, combined with restrictive zoning laws and lengthy planning approvals, have created significant barriers to increasing housing supply quickly enough to address the growing need. At the same time, foreign investment, particularly from Chinese buyers, continues to impact the housing market. While foreign residential property purchases have declined somewhat from their peak, investors from China remain a significant force. In 2023, foreign buyers, including Chinese nationals, purchased over $2.4 billion worth of residential property, according to the Foreign Investment Review Board. Many of these homes remain unoccupied, with foreign investors viewing Australian real estate as a safe asset to store wealth. This has reduced the availability of housing for Australians and contributed to higher property prices, especially in key markets like Sydney and Melbourne. The speculative nature of Australia's property market has further exacerbated the housing crisis. Housing is increasingly viewed as an investment opportunity rather than a basic human need. In early 2024, 35% of all property purchases were made by investors, many of whom own multiple properties. Policies like negative gearing and capital gains tax discounts have incentivized property speculation, driving up prices and pushing first-time buyers out of the market. These tax breaks, originally designed to stimulate housing investment, have primarily benefited wealthier Australians and led to the commodification of housing. Compounding the issue, interest rates remain high in 2024 as the Reserve Bank of Australia continues its efforts to control inflation. After years of historically low interest rates, which encouraged larger mortgage borrowing and contributed to a housing price boom, the RBA began raising rates in 2022. By 2024, the cash rate sits at around 4%, which has cooled the market slightly. But many Australians are now facing higher mortgage repayments, adding further pressure on household budgets. Meanwhile, the median house price in Sydney remains around $1.3 million, while in Melbourne, it sits close to $900,000, making home ownership unattainable for many. The rental market too has become fiercely competitive. In 2024, rental vacancy rates in major cities like Sydney and Melbourne have dropped to historic lows, often falling below 1%. With supply so limited, rents have surged, with average rental prices in Sydney rising by over 15 to 20% in the last year alone. Tenants now frequently find themselves in bidding wars, driving up rents even further. Platforms like Airbnb have worsened the situation by reducing the number of properties available for long-term rentals. In Melbourne alone, there are still around 15,000 homes listed on short-term rental platforms, further reducing the housing stock available to everyday renters. Government policies intended to support first-time buyers, like the First Home Buyer Grant, have sometimes had the unintended consequence of increasing demand without adequately boosting supply. While these policies make it easier for new buyers to enter the market, they don't address the underlying shortage of housing, leading to higher prices as more people compete for the same limited properties. Geographical constraints also continue to play a significant role. Sydney and Melbourne are hemmed in by natural barriers like coastlines, mountains, and national parks, limiting the ability to expand urban areas. This restriction on available land pushes property prices up even further, as new developments are confined to smaller, more expensive plots. In addition, the impact of climate change and natural disasters has exacerbated the problem. Floods, bushfires, and other extreme weather events have displaced thousands of people and destroyed homes across Australia. For example, the 2022 East Coast floods caused the destruction of over 1,000 homes, further tightening an already constrained housing market. In 2024, these combined factors have created a housing market that is increasingly out of reach for both buyers and renters. The Australian housing crisis is a result of multiple forces converging: rapid population growth through immigration, insufficient housing supply, foreign investment, speculative buying, and the rising costs of construction and borrowing. Without substantial intervention and reform, the situation is unlikely to improve. Governments, developers, and communities will need to work together to address both the demand and supply sides of the housing equation if Australia is to make housing more affordable and accessible for everyone. As it stands, many Australians are left competing in a market that remains fiercely competitive, expensive, and difficult to navigate.